So I was lucky enough to be at the Borderlands Fan Fest in LA this past weekend, and I was able to stream Borderlands 4 for a few hours. This is my first time ever playing. 2K did fly me out for the actual streaming, but this video, they have nothing to do with it. This is all just my impressions. So I just want to go through and talk about the good and the bad of the game and just give you my initial first impressions with my time with it. This might turn into a bit of a ramble, but I'm going to try my best to keep things as kind of grouped together as I possibly can, but for the most part, we're just gonna be talking about the things that like really stood out to me. I'll have more about like my time playing, other things that we've learned about the game here on the channel very shortly, so make sure you are subscribed for that. So I guess like the biggest thing to talk about with the game is just straight up, how does Borderlands 4 feel? And right now, in the 3.5 hours that I got to play, it felt really, really good. It felt basically like 3 in terms of gunplay. I couldn't get the exact feeling of the gunplay because the setup that we had with our mouse and keyboard and everything, I don't know what was going on, but we all, like, you can ask anybody else who streamed from the event, there's a bit of input lag. So if it looks like I'm just whiffing everything, it's because I am. I like could not aim with that setup, so I didn't get like a true sense of how the gunplay feels in the game, but I did get a pretty good sense. And otherwise, you combine that with the movement in the game. The movement is feeling really, really good. You can chain all of it together. You can do a grapple into a jump, and then you can glide to keep going. You can bunny hop when you land. You can slide when you land. Like, there's so much you can do to keep that momentum and just keep zooming. And not to mention all of the different like movement speed bonuses that there are in the game. We've seen so many from like the rep kits, class mods, skills themselves. Like, there's seriously just so much movement in the game, so I'm really, really excited to see what that ends up looking like at endgame. Like, we could be zooming around with hundreds of % movement speed, and just it's going to be nuts. It's going to be like having Speed Demon at all times. So I'm very, very excited about that. But overall, the movement in the game and just like the general gunplay feel is a really strong start here in Borderlands 4. Now, the other like big deviation from the Borderlands formula that we get with Borderlands 4 is now the game is kind of more open world. We got a small section to play at the start of the game. We skip basically like the initial intro, and then we're into the first area called the Fade Field. And even then, we didn't get like the whole area. There was a barrier that blocked us off one end, and then we couldn't go through like the tunnel on the right side of the map to go to the next area. We were kind of locked in there. And overall, I was very worried that it was going to feel empty, just with like, that's a lot of the cases with these open world games, is it just feels like a lot of dead space. And that was actually not the case. It could have been maybe like a little bit better here and there, but for the most part, there's always like an event or some point of interest to go explore. Very rarely did I find a point of interest where there wasn't something to do there. There was an event where I got to go up into a ship and fight whole hordes of enemies. That event was actually a lot of fun. I really did enjoy that. I'm curious to see what it looks like as we're able to progress further in it with like better builds and things like that later in the game. There were like puzzles all over the map. I did a puzzle where I had to weaken these like calf horn things and then use my grapple to lasso them, and I had to get all 4 within a time period. And then that opened a force field for me to open a red chest, and that was all like right at the start of the game. There's like safe houses to go find. There's bounties that you can pick up to walk around and find like a target or do like a little side mission type thing. And all of these together just make the world feel like there's always something to go do, which that is such a relief for me, because I was genuinely worried that it was going to feel empty. Like, I remember years back, there was a game called Biomutant. That game had absolutely nothing in the world. Like, you just walked around in just the vacuum of space. It was crazy how little there was to do in that world. And this is the total opposite. You're always running into something, and it's going to feel really, really good once the whole map opens up. And then, not to mention, there are so many just little quality of life things that have been added to the game as time goes on. Like, one that you can notice right off the bat is when you reload, there's a little timer just underneath your ammo. It's something super small, super simple, but it's really nice to know, like, you know, what your reload times are. If you get reload bonuses, you can see exactly how much that's affecting things. Now, it doesn't always line up exactly to when you see like the ammo going back into the magazine, like if you look at the numbers, but for the most part, it's really close, and you can get a general sense of when you can start shooting again, which is nice. And there's just like so many things with the menu. Like the whole respec system is different now. Now when you go up to the respec, you can respec just by tree. Like say you just want to respec your green tree, you can hit a button for that, or you can respec it all and you can just go through and fine tune it. You don't have to respec every time you want to change a point. There's an undo button while you're in that menu, and you can technically spec like all 5 points at once, but you need to hold the button. So hopefully they change that to where it's, you're normally left clicking to spec 1 point, or you could press space to just fill up the skill. Right now you have to hold space. So if they make that a press, like you're going to be able to spec super fast when you know exactly what you want to be building. And overall, it just feels like really good. It's super simple things that, minor grievances in previous games that were there that kind of add up over time. Like they have now addressed those in almost every single way. The only like issue with some of these quality of life and like the UI in general is it felt like there were some areas where things weren't super clear. Like your money isn't just directly displayed. You have to hover over something in the bottom right to see all of your different currencies, which is a little annoying. And then when you're in like a vendor or anything like that, it doesn't display, at least to my knowledge, doesn't display how much money you have. So if say, you want to buy something, but you don't know if it's going to be, 99% of your money, like you don't have an idea. You have to back out, go into your inventory, hover over the thing. So that part was a little weird, but that's something that could be so easily changed between now and launch. So that stuff I'm not really worried about, but it is something worth noting. One other big addition to Borderlands 4 is the new Ordinance systems. Now like grenades, rocket launchers, throwing knives, like all of these things are now Ordinance based. And I was very curious to see if they were going to be powerful or not, because they're all on cooldowns now. And I can say the Ordinance is very, very strong. The two that I had the best success with was like a little chain gun minigun and then a full auto rocket launcher. Those like destroyed and kind of carried for me in certain scenarios, which is really nice. And I'm sure there's going to be insane grenades. Like Rafa has a ton of grenade focused building in his tree and like one of the class mods that we saw. So I think there's going to be a ton we can do. And also today over on Twitter, we saw some stuff with like Ordnance is going to encompass all those things, while like the rocket launchers will get gun damage, or like the chain guns are going to get gun damage as well as Ordnance damage. The, kunai or whatever could potentially get melee damage. So there's going to be different areas that they're going to be able to scale from, and you're truly going to be able to build around Ordnance, which is really cool. The other really big part of the game that we got to experience was a vault mission. This is some more like higher level, sort of pseudo endgame. Maybe it's going to be one of our endgame activities, but basically we're on a level 20 character. You just fight through a bunch of hordes of enemies throughout these pillars. You get launched to like the next one. You clear like, 4 or so waves, a bunch of tough enemies, pretty standard like mobbing sections. But then we get to the actual vault boss, and there was seriously one of the best bosses that have been in a Borderlands game. Like the mechanics are really good. It makes you use everything new within the game. So you have to use like your double jump, your dashes, your gliding, like your grapple. You have to use all these things to defeat the boss in the quickest way possible and the safest way possible. Like you can essentially almost like iframe some of the boss stuff if you jump over his attacks. And then he goes into this like pseudo immune phase where you got to knock him out of this cocoon, and he turns the whole floor into lava essentially. So you grapple up, you float in the air and shoot to the top of his little cocoon to knock him out. Then you get a small damage window at the bottom. You can like open up his weak points with the grapple, and then fire away and get a bunch of super easy crits. So like there's just a ton of mechanics to it. It's not like a boss is just sitting there and you're just shooting whatever you have. Like there's a bunch of things that you need to keep in mind and aim for as you're fighting this boss. So I think this is a really good sign for bosses in Borderlands 4, and I'm very curious to see what like true endgame bosses are looking like. I feel like they could be super tough and a lot of fun. But I guess now let's move on over to some things that I didn't really like, I thought weren't that great, or really need to be improved upon. The biggest one for me by far was the mouse sensitivity options. Like I said, there was some input lag that was like from the equipment that we were using at the event. But in the actual game itself, the mouse sensitivity options were crazy. Even for like a standard 800 DPI mouse, it was really, really bad. Like I think 0.3 ended up being way too fast. 0.2 ended up being more on like the slow side. So I had to kind of just live with it being too quick, which it did not help with the input lag and everything that was going on and why it felt so weird to aim within the game. I did change some of my like mouse software sensitivity to 1600 DPI, which is like normally what I play in my at home setup. And there, like 0.1 barely moved my mouse. 0.2, I was like doing 360s in 2 inches of mouse movement. Like it was such a crazy difference between the lowest end of the sensitivity. Like those were my only options to pick from. So that part really needs to be addressed. Like me and several others have talked about them to the developers directly about that. So hopefully that's something they improve upon. But that is a very, very big issue. It makes the gunplay feel quite weird. Otherwise, the gunplay is going to be really good if you're happy with the sensitivity. But right there, like it does not feel good with the sensitivity options. A smaller grievance that I had, and I don't even know if it's going to end up playing like a big issue. I don't know what like the money economy is going to look like. But in the game, we now have the Encore machine where you get to respawn a boss just with a press of a button with no load times or anything. You just press the button, that area gets reset, and the boss comes back. We were doing that with like the Vault monster. So that is going to end up costing money. And from the people that I talked to who played last month at the like private event at 2K, it is now way more expensive for what we played. And I'm very curious to see if that's going to scale up with like levels. So if it ends up being like you have to go farm currency to just do what we were doing in a save quit, I think that's really bad because save quitting was always free. It just took time. So now with this Encore machine, it should just be replacing save quitting. It shouldn't be adding this extra like grind layer on top for currency. I think that's really dumb. So hopefully, that cost just gets eliminated, or if there is a cost, have it be incredibly, incredibly low. So it just knocks out like super early game spamming of a boss or an area, just so you don't get any like crazy legendary drops like at level 5 or something. Anything like that, I'd be happy with, as long as it just becomes an issue or not an issue where I have to go farm for currency. That is the main thing I'm trying to avoid with that. I just think, once again, if you didn't have to pay money to save quit in previous games, you shouldn't have to pay money to do essentially a save quit in this game. Another thing that was really throwing me off was the just general gun balance. I have no idea, obviously, what endgame guns are going to be looking like. I'm sure we're going to be one-shotting everything, but at least in early game, and even that level 20 character I was on, if I did not have like a certain weapon type, everything kind of felt really bad. Like it felt like I was shooting an enemy for so long to kill them. If you notice in most of the gameplay that you're going to be seeing throughout this video, I'm using an underbarrel shotgun, which is like an alternate fire mode that can come on a bunch of different weapons. This underbarrel shotgun was just miles and miles and miles ahead of any other weapon or ordinance or anything that I used during my 3.5 hours of play. Like the underbarrel shotgun is just way up here. And then anything else I used, it wasn't even like it was just like normal. Like they did feel like kind of bad. Like these underbarrel shotguns, they were on level 5 weapons and they were still killing things at level 13 way quicker than my on level gear would kill things. Everything else felt a little weak. So hopefully they do some fine tuning with some of the just general weapon archetypes here and there and make it feel a little bit quicker. Maybe decrease the time to kill by a little bit, just so it doesn't feel like you're shooting a sponge quite as much. The same kind of goes with the action skills as well. Like normally action skills can be pretty strong in early game. And for the most part, most of the action skills that I used did not feel very strong. I did just play Vex. I didn't play Rafa at all. And obviously we don't know Harlow or Eamon, how those are going to be playing. But right now, like Vex's early game action skills, Incarnate and Trouble, did not feel very good. It felt like they did not hit hard at all. The Dead Ringer, like the Spectres and Reapers, actually did feel pretty good, especially the Spectres when I gave them one of their augments for the like explosion that they can create. That one felt like they were killing enemies fairly quickly, but it did feel like I needed like 2 or 3 of them out at a time, so I had to use like all my charges on just like one small group of enemy instead of like placing one here, one there, in different smaller groups. Now this last part is going to be about the compass. Now we've already known that we're going to be getting a radar in the full release of the game to let us know where enemies are. I made a whole video on that before I left for the event. But still in general, like with that compass, outside of locating enemies with it, like just locating objectives, it still felt really weird. I was lost quite a bit. And I feel like I have a good general sense of like general level design, game design. I've played a bunch of different games throughout my life. I have a good idea of how things are set up. And even then, I was pretty lost on like where to go, especially with some of these maps were pretty like vertical and you double back under itself. And it was very odd to navigate with it. I couldn't really tell where my objectives were. I kept having to stop, open up the big map, zoom in with that. So it did feel a little weird. So if, there was a day they could ever actually add a true mini map, I would still like to see that over a radar. I'm still very happy with the turnaround that they had on the radar. But for right now, the compass still does feel a little weird. And maybe it's something I'm going to get used to. But right now, just my initial first 3.5 hours of play, the compass was very confusing to me. The final thing that I have a gripe with in Borderlands 4, and if you know me about anything with Borderlands 3, you'll know I absolutely hate modifiers, like ARPG style modifiers. I think they are so boring and annoying. All they do is just slow down gameplay and just be a nuisance. Like, they're not even fun to play around. I I really don't like them. And in this game, it feels like you literally just do not notice the modifier in any way, shape, or form. Like, you read it and you're like, I don't know what that does. You kill them, like, literally nothing happens. You have no idea what was going on. Or it is incredibly oppressive. You kill them and then you just get health gated because you kill them, which is like the whole point of the game is to kill enemies, and you get drastically punished for doing so. It's so annoying. So I would really like to see, if they're going to keep these modifiers in, which they obviously will, like, none of these should just be health gating you for no reason. There was several times I was at 100% HP. I kill an enemy, and because I'm not like paying super close attention to the word that's underneath their name or a little tiny like purple effect on them, they create a singularity that just pulls me in, like completely takes care of takes control of your character, pulls you in, and it feels like you can't escape. I've heard people can dash out. I was never able to escape, and it just 100% shield, 100% health, all the way down to 10 HP health gate. Like, it was really annoying. Luckily, there was like no other enemies around. It was the last enemy I killed. But, in endgame, as we're mobbing around in super dense areas, like, you're just going to end up dying from that, which is really annoying. So, and it just feels horrible to not have control of your character with modifiers like that. And it's just super punishing to playstyles that have to get close. Like, melee is just a full-on playstyle in Borderlands. Having that just drastically affect that one playstyle because of RNG is really annoying. So I would like to see the damage of those drastically toned back. Just that way, you can still stand a fighting chance when you get hit by them. But yeah, I just wanted to give my first impressions during my time playing Borderlands 4. This is just everything that comes to the top of my head, the really glaring things that are sticking out to me. I would say overall, it's like 95% plus good things with Borderlands 4. When Borderlands 4 was first announced, I was super reserved with my excitement. I was very curious to see, how things were going to be shaping before I got excited. And now after playing it, seeing everything that the devs are sharing, like, they've been super active on Twitter. They've been answering all sorts of questions. They're making changes on the spot based on community feedback. Like, it's genuinely been insane how much they're listening and improving the game before it's even out. So this just gets me so excited for the full launch of the game. I am really, really looking forward to it. And I'm praying that this could be the best Borderlands game to date. Yeah, let me know down below the things that you like, have not liked so far in all of the coverage that's been coming out about Borderlands 4. Let me know those things you like and don't like in the comments below. But if you guys are still watching this far, I really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.